All right, we get it rolling on a Monday. Hope everybody had a phenomenal weekend. It is March the 20th. We are right in the middle of NFL free agency. We're about a month before the draft. The Niners are making moves. Raj is in the house. It's a Monday at 1, and we are here, Larry Krueger and the great Raj in the house. And Raphael 562 Niners says, "What's up, Larry? What's up, Raj? What's up, everyone? How are you, Raphael?" And of course, we're brought to you by Pig in a Pickle. Check him out, Corte Madera and in Emeryville. More on Pig in a Pickle in a bit. The best barbecue in Northern California. And of course, bottom of the screen, you still see Crew Show from Scottsdale. And I'm not actually in Scottsdale, but New York Style Sausage Company, our sponsor, sent us to Scottsdale this month, and we are honoring them throughout the month with the wraparound. So if you're proliferating the chat with, "Are you in Scottsdale?" I wish I was in Scottsdale. But today, actually, beautiful weather in Northern California, and the Niners are making news, and this is a great time to talk Niners, and it's always great to have Raj. Hey, Raj.
What's up, Larry? It's always great to be here, my man. I'm excited. Of course, every day we love to talk about Niners, but especially during the free agency period when there's so much news. There was news today before we even signed on, so I'm sure we'll talk about that. We'll wrap up free agency because the last time we talked, the 49ers signed Javon Hargrave, but there's been a lot of things that happened in between, so I'm excited to be here, Larry.
Yeah, let's just roll it down. Let's go straight down the roster, and then we'll get into some of the headlines. Let's start at the quarterback position. It's Purdy, it's Lance, it's Darnold, and maybe a question mark about will there be a fourth guy added in the draft? How do you feel about quarterback right now?
I mean, I feel good. I think we talked about this, that they have two quarterbacks on a rookie contract. They're building this team around that notion, knowing that you can kind of take advantage of the cheap contract. I think altogether, their quarterback room is $13 million, $14 million. It's a pretty much of a bargain. Most guys, in NFL starters, like 25 to 30, $40 million. So in the sense of money-wise, I think we're in a good position. Now, I'm not sure if Brock Purdy's going to be back 100%, so you worry about that. And then we worry, is Trey Lance going to be, will he live up to his potential? So there's that. But I do like the two young guys. I love Brock, what he did last year. I love Trey Lance and his potential, but he has to hit that. I think Darnold was a solid, emergency quarterback, but I don't think he's coming in just to be that third string quarterback. He's going to come in and try to compete with Trey Lance and maybe take a starting job until Brock Purdy's coming in. So I like where we're at. I feel like we're still in good shape. Obviously, we have a young quarterback room with, like I said, not a lot of money tied to it. So I think we could take advantage of that. We still got to get Bosa back this offseason and extend him. So I think that's going to give him the cap flexibility to do that. I like Darnold with the 49ers. Again, I wouldn't have taken him as QB1 years ago. Kyle Shanahan, he's never played for a coach like that offensively. He did talk about Brian Griese in his press conference and how he's, intrigued with playing with him. And I love Griese last year. His first year as a quarterback coach in the NFL, I feel like he did a good job. Three quarterbacks, what he did with them, he kind of made Jimmy look like like he had his best year last year. So I'm intrigued by seeing Darnold there. He has some mobility, and they have great weapons that Darnold's never had. He had a little bit of a stretch run last year. He went 4-2 for the Panthers. He knows Steve Wilkes. He knows CMC. So good fit. Overall, I'm intrigued by the 49ers quarterback room, and I'm excited to see what they do in training camp because I think Sam's going to push Trey, and Trey's going to really take advantage of this because Kyle knows Trey Lance has to come out there and compete and earn this spot because if he's not better than Sam Darnold, then we know everything we have to know about Trey Lance this offseason. So I think it was a good move by Kyle bringing him Sam Darnold.
I'm excited about the room just because I think you got three young guys who, I think all three of them can play on some level. They're not too young. They're not too old. They're all properly motivated. Couple of them coming off injuries. Another guy coming off of maybe his best play in the NFL, and Darnold. I'm excited. You referenced it. It's a cheap quarterback room. It's a really good room as far as character. You got Darnold, who's super motivated. He's been humbled. I think he had his butt kissed at SC so much. And I just think that he needed that, just be slapped around a little bit. And now he understands and appreciates, that every situation is not like every other situation, and you do need to be surrounded by your teammates and in a line and weapons and good play calling. And so now he's hungry to show in a great situation that he can play quarterback in the NFL. So he's kind of desperate to show what he's got. Trey's got to be desperate to show what he's got. Brock, is desperate to get back and play the kind of football he was playing and just keep it rolling, and get back to 100% physically. And I think you got a really great room. You don't have there's no veteran there. So it is going to take, Greasy some tutelage. He's going to earn his money. But I like the room. Let's move on to running back. I think they're pretty loaded here too. McCaffrey, Mitchell, Jordan Mason, TDP with Juszczyk at fullback. That's 4 running backs and a fullback. That's gonna be a hard roster to crack for anybody in this draft unless they invest highly in a running back. I can't see him doing it. There's a ton of good backs in this draft. I'm pretty convinced they'll get somebody, but I don't think they need to sign one in free agency unless they felt like they had a steal. I'll tell you the guy who's out there that really is intriguing to me is Leonard Fournette. If Fournette were available, I mean, he is available. If they could get him at a cheap price, he's such a great receiver out of the backfield, and he's 230, 240. He grew up a Niner fan in New Orleans. I once did an interview with him, and he's like passionate about being a Niner. This was coming out in the draft. He just hasn't happened for him. He would be doing cartwheels if the 49ers signed him, and I think he might be a steal, considering I don't think he's going to get a lot of money. But I love the backs, even without a guy like that. They're stacked at running back.
Yeah, and that's the 49ers' bread and butter, the run game, right? They always have to have good running backs. I mean, Fournette, for a cheap price, I wouldn't hate it, but I mean, you could kind of see he did kind of wear down over the last couple of years. The tread was kind of wearing thin on the tires. But again, pass catching back for a third option, Leonard Fournette definitely wouldn't be horrible as a third back on this team. But I like the youth they have. I like TDP. I think that I want to see him get some more touches and kind of take that year 2 leap. Jordan Mason, that's the guy I'm really intrigued by. If you remember last year, training camp, preseason, this guy came in, he was a dog, and he really showed himself. He earned a spot on that roster as an undrafted guy. So I would be shocked if the 49ers don't at least draft a late round running back. I'm almost certain they'll take an undrafted running back because that's what Kyle does. His team is always filled with undrafted guys. We have Christian McCaffrey, who is an absolute amazing addition to this roster, probably the perfect running back for this team. We talk about those young quarterbacks. He's the perfect complement for those running backs. A check down Charlie type guy. He's the safety blanket. He can take that 5-yard pass, turn it into an 80-yard play. So I love CMC, but I want to see those other 2 guys get some action to kind of take some wear and tear off of CMC. We don't want him to get hurt. We want him to last through the season and be, in prime shape in the playoffs. And then Elijah Mitchell, that's a guy who I'm intrigued by. Really good talent, great player for this team, but he hasn't had a good case of staying healthy over the years. So I still think they get another running back because the 49ers, you can never have too many running backs on this team. But I love the group they have. And then, of course, Kyle Juszczyk, blocking guy. I think he's underutilized in this offense. Maybe they use him a little bit more as a weapon, but he's a hell of a player. Definitely think that they're going to draft a guy. But, I like where the running back room is right now. CMC, man, can't say enough about him. That guy was such an addition to this team. I still can't believe that they traded for him. Sometimes I wake up, I'm like, 49ers traded for CMC.
He was a perfect fit, absolutely perfect fit. And man, so much about this offseason for the 49ers is you have the what could have been thought over and over and over again. I mean, he looked sharp in that game. What could have been if they hadn't lost their quarterback. All right, let's go to the wide receivers real quick. I'd be totally fine if they don't draft or bring in a wide receiver. Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Juwan Jennings, Danny Gray, Ray McLeod, Tay Martin. Some people even like Tyron Johnson. There's Daz Newsome in this camp. But just that front 6, I mean, you're only going to keep really 6, maybe even 5. And I love the guys they got. I got no problem if they ran it back with this exact receiving core. I got that much belief in the group.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think that they need to add anybody. Obviously, if they did, I'd be excited for whoever they bring in. But the 49ers have a special skill set of receivers. The yak type guys. You got Deebo and Ayuk, perfect example. You drop it off to them. Then you got Kittle, who's a tight end, who's essentially another wide receiver in this group. So I'm not too worried about the receiving group. I just hope that they make sure they pick up that 5th-year option on Ayuk by May 1st, which I'm almost certain they would. I'd be surprised if they don't. So I'm good with the wide receivers. And you got to remember, like you said, you have a guy in Danny Gray who really didn't get that opportunity last year. I'm hoping he takes that leap. Juwan Jennings, they gave him his tender this year. I think he's in line for a bigger year. He's basically in a contract year, so I expect him to kind of work his way into the roster a little bit more, maybe get a little bit more production. But overall, wide receiver, if they don't add anybody, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it.
Kittle obviously at tight end, Charlie Warner, and today, why don't we get into the headlines of the day? Ross Dwelly is back on a 1-year deal. Dwelly, University of San Diego, played for the Toreros, undersized guy, but he's a really good athlete. He's a tremendous receiver. He's not much of an inline blocker, but I really like him as a receiver. He's got good hands. He's a special teamer for the most part, but this guy, he's a good football player, I think, as a receiver. And in an era where you're using the tight ends out in the pattern more, I'd like to have, one really good receiver outside of Kittle. So you got Kittle, you got Charlie Warner, you got Dwelly, and we'll see. I think they probably almost for sure hit this either most likely in the draft. But a lot of people were calling for Austin Hooper. I threw out Robert Tonyan. I think Dwelly in the draft is probably the position the way they go at tight end. What did you think of the Dwelly re-signing? I didn't see any of the specifics on the money.
So 1-year deal. I didn't see the specifics yet, 100%. I don't think they have that out yet. But I like Dwelly. He's a good pass catching receiver. He didn't get used a lot last year. He's been on the team now. This is going to be his 6th year. Solid veteran. Him and Kittle are boys. I would have loved to have Robert Tonyan, actually. Me and you think alike in that. I was pushing for Tonyan because I think they need another pass catching guy. Kittle's going to be 30. He plays so physical, and you need a guy that can help step in if he can't play a game or just take some pressure off of him. Because Kittle does everything. He blocks, he catches, he does literally everything for that team. So I do want a guy that could come in and help him out. I like Dwelly again. He's played 6 years. I think he started 17 games over his time with the 49ers, so it basically tells you when Kittle's out, Dwelly's getting in. He's getting the inline start there. So I like Charlie Warner, definitely a blocker, but the 49ers typically have 4 or 5 tight ends on a roster, and they like to use them as blockers, as we saw in the NFC Championship with Tyler Kroft and Hassan Reddick, the infamous play, So I would be shocked if they don't go tight end. There's a few people that I like. Sam Laporta out of Iowa, that's my guy. If they can go get a tight end, Iowa University, is tight end U. It's where Kittle's from. And then the other guy I like from Ohio State, I have him on my list, Cade Stover, I believe his name. Those are my top 2 tight ends if the 49ers are going to be drafting, because they're in that round of where the 49ers could probably get a tight end. I would be surprised if they don't get a guy. I like Dwelly, but I don't think they utilized him enough. Again, good pass catcher, but I don't think he moves the needle in terms of being like a big-time production guy. But good re-signing.
Yeah, I mean, you want to have some continuity in your football team, and this guy, hardworking guy, athletic tight end, not really a strong inline blocker, but you want to have some. I think they look at that room and say they're going to go into the draft and take. I wouldn't be surprised if they took 2 tight ends. I mean, they like to utilize the tight end. I'm a huge Michael Mayer fan, but he didn't work out all that well, and now they're saying he's falling in the first round. He's not going to fall to the 49ers in the 3rd round, but I'm a huge Michael Mayer fan. Kincaid from Utah is tremendous. Darnell Washington, how about that one-handed catch at the combine? That was crazy. And Laporta, you mentioned Laporta. I mean, he's just really, really solid. There's a couple other guys. Payne Durham out of Purdue. Kuntz, the gigantic 6'8" guy from Old Dominion.
Oh, yeah. Luke Musgrave, that guy. He's a stud,
yes, man. Luke Musgrave's a great athlete.
Yeah.
Schoonmaker, the Michigan tight ends, is a force. So there's a bunch of guys. And then, as far as movement tight end, you got that Stanford wide receiver, Elijah Higgins, who goes 235 and worked out great. He might be a phenomenal day 3, movement tight end. The other news of the day is that Jordan Willis is gone. And this one is disappointing, man. I'm really disappointed in this. I thought maybe there was a chance between Ebukam and Menahue and Willis that they would be able to re-sign one of those guys. And instead, all 3 of them go out the door. This is a good pickup for the Raiders for sure. Jordan Willis is a really quiet guy. He lets us play do his talking, but this guy ran 4.53 coming out of K-State. And he just became a real, big time contributor on the Niner defense and on special teams. He played at least 15 defensive snaps in every game after week 10, except for 2. He was also a big part of the coverage units. He wore 75. I really like Jordan Willis a lot. And to me, the Raiders, if you look at this as like a straight trade where the Raiders get Jordan Willis and the Niners get Cleveland Farrell, I think the Raiders won that trade easily.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, although I love Cleveland Farrell, I think that's a good move. We'll talk about him late, but I agree. I was very surprised the 49ers didn't bring back, Jordan Willis again, mainly just for special teams play, not even his ability on the edge, which was a bonus for him because he was such a good special teams player. If you guys remember, obviously the most legendary play in the playoffs from 2 years ago, the block punt, Green Bay, unbelievable divisional playoff games, scoop and score from Hufanga. Like that was the game. We couldn't score a point, and if it wasn't for that block punt, we don't win the game. And this guy was he was traded in 2020 to the Niners for a 6th-round pick, basically. Got him for nothing, and he was a very solid depth piece. I liked him. I thought we were going to at least sign him back. And you're right. If you would have told me 3 weeks ago when 49ers were going into free agency that they wouldn't have signed at least Omenihu, Ebicam, or Willis, one of those guys, I would have said no way. The fact that they didn't get any one of those guys, it's crazy. So to me, they absolutely need to go in the draft and get some young edge rushers. Hopefully they can go and get one more of the free agents we'll talk about later. I know there's still a lot out there, Nagaku, Clowney. There's still quite a bit of edge rushers. But if you're not going to go sign Jordan Willis, maybe you're trying to save a buck or two and go through the draft because there is tons of draft talent. I mean, Andre Carter, Byron Young, BJ Ojolari. I mean, there's quite a bit of draft prospects here on the edge. They need to get some help because I love Clellan. I think he's a solid addition, but you need more guys because last year you had Ebicam and Omenihu. That was over 1,300 snaps on your team. You lost it. You're putting a lot of pressure on a guy like Drake Jackson, who I think can have a second-year leap, but we don't know. We can't guarantee Drake Jackson to take that leap. So definitely need some more depth on there. You're going to put a lot of pressure on Cleveland Farrell and Jordan Willis. But if there's one guy, or not Jordan Willis, Drake Jackson, if there's one guy that can get the most out of these defensive linemen, it's Chris Kasurik. He takes players, he develops them, and he goes and gets them paid every single year. So I'm not too worried. I mean, I would have loved to bring Jordan Willis, but I know Chris Kasurik's going to get somebody, develop them, get 5 sacks, and then they'll get paid, and then rinse, lather, repeat. So at the end of the day, I'm not too worried about it.
Well, I mean, if somebody asked me my opinion on it, I would have said at the beginning of the year or beginning of free agency, if you're trying to set yourself up, like what can you afford to let go? As much as I like Willis and Omenihu and Ebukam, I liked all 3 of those guys. When I'm looking at the draft that I'm looking at, and the number of picks the Niners have and where all these guys are slated to go, there's going to be several replacements, edge rushers that are maybe even a little bit more dynamic than the guys you just let go. Now, they're not going to be as efficient. They're not going to be, I mean, those guys are veterans who know how to play, technique and everything else. But as far as just edge rusher talent, there's a lot of edge rusher talent in this draft. And now it's just a matter of, can you handicap it? Can you pick the right guys? And we'll get into it. We'll get into that because I'm looking at, very, very deep group of edge rushers with guys that you can take in the 3rd round. I mean, you could get 4th round, 5th round, right on through to the end of the draft. So I'm not saying that their defensive linemen are easy to find, but I think if they could get one, we'll talk about free agents here in a second, but one free agent, I think they could complement the rest of it in the draft. That's how deep this draft class is.
Yeah.
One of the signings that is official is Mike Garafolo reported end of last week. The Niners agreed to terms with Miles Hartsfield, who was a restricted free agent with Carolina, and then Carolina non-tendered him, so became unrestricted. Niners jumped in, took him. He was undrafted out of Ole Miss in 2020, and then played under Steve Wilkes with Carolina. Obviously, this is a Wilkes call. I'm just looking at his snaps in Carolina, 812 snaps, 343 in the slot,
Mm-hmm.
256 coming at free safety. So you're talking about a slot player, a free safety, a versatile guy, tremendous athlete. At his pro day, he ran 4.39. He had a 38.5-inch vert. Great, a lot of great athletes come off of the Ole Miss campus, and he was an Ole Miss product. He doesn't turn 26 until August. Last season, 58 tackles, 5 for loss, forced fumble. So they lose Tarvarius Moore, but they add Miles Hartsfield, who's not like a name that everybody knows, but obviously it's a player that Wilkes is familiar with and wanted. What did you think of that pickup?
Yeah, I think the familiarity with Wilkes is basically why they went and grabbed him, because they weren't going to be able to keep everybody. You lose 3 guys in your secondary: Emmanuel Mosley, Jimmy Ward, and Tarvarius Moore. And all 3 of those guys, specifically Jimmy Ward, is very versatile. A guy that they could have played at, free safety, nickel. They can move him around. Tarvarius Moore, special teams guy, safety. E-Man, he's played inside, outside, mainly outside. A guy like Hartsfield, he's played safety, like you said. He's played nickel. He's played special teams. So he's a guy that can basically replace any one of those guys. They have Isaiah Oliver, who they added, also a guy that played nickel, some safety too. So what they're telling me is they got these versatile guys because they lost versatile guys. They don't really know who's going to be that nickel yet. They don't know who's going to play where in the safety, but they have guys that are familiar with Steve Wilkes' defensive schemes, and now they're going to add them in training camp. They'll go in battle and figure out where they really fit on their scheme. So maybe Hartsfield will be your nickel. Maybe Womack will be your nickel. Maybe Oliver. One of those guys will be your nickel. But then the other guys can play rotation depending on injuries. You never know what's going to happen. You have to have guys that can come in, plug and play. That's the 49er system. You need players that can come right in. If there's an injury, you can't panic. You have to say, okay, Hartsfield, get in there. It's your turn to shine. So I liked it. It was good depth. Obviously, they went and signed 2 guys, Oliver and Hartsfield, instead of signing 1 guy in any one of those 2 guys with Emmanuel or Ward. Would I have loved Ward? Heck yeah. But to me, when I saw the contract, $6.5 million, and you basically get Hartsfield and Oliver, that's what they're doing, is they're making sure they get depth instead of picking 1 guy. So they went for the quantity over the quality. We'll see if it burns us in the end. But again, I think these are 2 guys that could come in and just be solid plug-and-play pieces, Swiss Army knives. We'll see how Jimmy does in Houston. But again, I think they saved a little money and were able to bring in 2 guys instead of 1.
There's some concern in the chat on this one. Greg T says, am I the only one worried about all these old Carolina players? Is the defense going to take a step backward? We've got this one as well from Sean Prapper, who says Carolina players brought over are for depth, you guys. Okay. Yeah. All right. Easy, everybody. Randy Daytona, great name, says they're Wilkes players. Exactly. Wilkes is the new coordinator, and he's got guys. I mean, look, if it's the Bill Parcells theory. Hey, man, if I'm going to be responsible for the meal, I should be able to have a say in who's buying some of the groceries, right? And it's the same deal with Wilkes. Hey, man, if you're going to hold me to a standard, at least let me get a couple of my guys. Now, Hartsfield's a solid nickel corner and a core special teamer. That's really what he is. He's a great athlete, really good against the run and the nickel. He's a really good blitzer off the edge. He's a really reliable tackler. He gets to his spot in the zone efficiently. The issue is he's not great in man-to-man coverage, and that's why he's a special teamer fill-in guy. But he's a high-energy guy that Wilkes likes. And as Raj just stated, they don't know who's going to play in what spot. So you bring in Isaiah Oliver. He can play outside. He can play inside in the slot. You got Womack. He can play outside. He can play inside. Lenore can play outside, can play inside. You don't know when you get to camp who's going to shine. So you get a bunch of athletes, throw them in there, and see how it all works out. But I really like the move because I think, one, Wilkes is getting a guy that he likes. He knows how to utilize. He knows what his defense is. He likes to run a lot of cover 3. He feels like he's going to bring in DBs that he feels like can play that zone really effectively, really fast, and have mirrored type coverage up and down the field. So, I'm all for it. Now, it's not Isaiah Hartsfield Miles Hartsfield is suddenly they're going to the Super Bowl, but in conjunction or in addition to Isaiah Oliver and what they do in the draft, I think I like it. I like it. I like the fact that he's a premier athlete coming from a scheme that he's going to be familiar with.
Correct.
And, the one thing about the Niners secondary, if you're looking at it on paper, they got a lot of young guys right now. and they've got some holes that they're going to address in the draft. So that is going to be a really young room. So the veterans who are in that room are going to have a huge responsibility. So that's why I think they're hand picking. We want Tayshaun Gibson. We want Miles Hartsfield, because they want guys who can play the system right now, but also create the culture in that room, because that culture went out the door when Mosley left and when Jimmy left. I mean, not that DB coach has no control or anything, but that's where your culture was made. And before that, Tart. Now those guys are all out of the room. K1 was another big culture guy. He, in the last couple of years, you've lost your entire culture of your secondary. Now you're going to go into the draft, look for a lot of young guys. You got to have some veteran examples that you really believe in their play and who they are. And I think this is an example of what that's about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why bringing back Tayshaun Gibson was huge, because they knew they were going to lose Ward. So at least you have one key veteran. And like you said, Steve Wilkes is going to bring in his guys. I mean, that's what D'Amico Ryans is doing. He's taking all the Niners that he's familiar with because he's starting a new regime. You got to get players that can buy into your system and lead, your new group of guys. And again, we're going to have a lot of young rookies. You got to have people that are familiar with your system. And if Steve Wilkes knows he can trust this guy, then it should be a fine pick. I mean, even the Titans, they're signing a bunch of former Niners because Rand Carthon's over there cherry picking 49ers. So that's what you do. You bring in people that you're familiar with. I expected the 49ers to have some Carolina guys. And if you really think this team, if you watched the Panthers last year, they were actually good down the stretch. That's when Steve Wilkes took over, and he's our new DC. They were winning games at the end of the season with these players. So I'm all for it. I wish we would have got a Brian Burns, but I mean, I'll take Isaiah. I'll take Hartsfield.
Yeah. Can you have Brian Burns come with you? And Sam Darnold was a big part of that, by the way, down the stretch.
4-2.
Okay, so the other rumor over the weekend, was it Schultz that had this one that Lonnie Johnson the Niners were looking at Lonnie Johnson, who's a big corner, played at Kentucky, terrific athlete coming out, and now has kind of played some downs at free safety and in the slot. And he, the nice thing about Lonnie Johnson, he's a big corner who now is transitioning either inside to safety or maybe even going to play a little nickel. When I heard that, I was like, you know what? I'd be thrilled by that, just because you can never have enough corners, especially veteran corners. Right now they have Charvarius Ward and Lenore and Hartsfield, who's, probably going to be your nickel, and Isaiah Oliver and Ambry Thomas and Womack. And, so that's 6, which is, it's not like they're naked there, but at the same time, you definitely need to add a couple pieces on the corner. I don't know. What do you think of Lonnie Johnson? What do you think of the rumor? I would like it, just because I think if you could go into the draft not needing a corner at all, that's a way better position to be in, because otherwise you're going to have to wind up reaching for one. You see teams do that a lot in the NFL draft. They start reaching for corners because they get real thin. So I would like the idea of Lonnie, just so the Niners, could, if they want to draft a corner, they can get the guy they want, instead of trying to say, oh, we got to have a guy who can play right away.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that same concept when we talked about edge rusher, if they can get a veteran edge rusher and they can get a solid cornerback going into the draft, there won't be as much pressure on having to knock it out of the park. You can stack some talent that can be depth, because the 49ers absolutely need depth at all their positions. A couple years, I mean, not just a couple years ago. I remember for years I've been sitting here going, I need corner. I want this team to have corner depth. The year we went in with Josh Norman and Drake Kirkpatrick as our quarterback 1 and 2 needs to tell you everything you need to know. You have to have solid depth. You have to have a contingency plan, because Richard Sherman didn't come back that year. Emmanuel Mosley was there, and then he got hurt. Jason Verrett got hurt, and we were down to Kirkpatrick and Josh Norman. No disrespect to them, but it was absolutely dumpster fire at secondary that year. We have to make sure you get depth. Lonnie was a good athlete in college. I followed him a lot in Kentucky. I remember the year he came out, 2019, or the year that Bosa and everybody came out. I remember scouting Josh Allen in 2019, his teammate, and I saw a lot of Lonnie Johnson on the film, and I was like, okay, this guy's not bad. Good athlete. He's still young, and you're right. He's a versatile player. What did we just talk about? The 49ers like Swiss Army knife type guys. You add him, he could compete. He can be depth. If there's an injury, plug and play. That's the 49ers strategy. We've said it many times here. So definitely would like to have him, because it makes your draft a little less pressure cooker situation. Again, there's a lot of talent in the draft, but you're not going to draft everybody that you have on your board. You're going to miss on some. You might reach on some. It happens. Maybe the 49ers can trade up and get a premier position if they don't have to go and sign all the positions that have holes. So maybe they go get Lonnie Johnson. They're like, you know what? We're not as pressed to get a cornerback. Let's take some of these third-round picks that we have and a player and, boom, move up to the second round and go get that right tackle that you need. So that would be smarter in my eyes. I would love to get Lonnie. Again, he's not like a name that you're like, oh, my God, they just got Lonnie Johnson. They're going to the Super Bowl. No, but it's a good depth piece, and you absolutely need depth in the NFL with injury. So, go ahead and do it, Niner. John Lynch, make the move.
I'll tell you the other thing about Lonnie Johnson. He's a Gary, Indiana kid who is, 6'2", 215 pounds, ran 4.52 coming out. Deep speed's not his thing. 1.53 as his 10-yard split, though. Pretty good quickness. But he was a track athlete. He was went the JUCO route, Garden City Community College. I liked him in the draft. I mean, what really stands out, though, long arms, really long arms, has experience both on the corner, lots of experience on the corner. That's his background, but now also has experience at free safety, which is great. The versatility is great. But also what you're getting one of the NFL's best edge kick blockers. This guy comes flying off the edge and is really has a knack for blocking kicks. That, you get into a big time situation and you're looking for a special team play. It's nice to have a, long corner who is great at firing off the edge and blocking kicks. I mean, every little edge matters when you get into a big time playoff game or a Super Bowl situation. So I would love that. I'd love to see them go that direction. And then they could focus more on the edge rusher class in the draft, and they don't have to necessarily say, well, gotta have a corner. All right, let's go to free agency, because I entitled this 49er free agency steals. And, I've got the list of free agents out. And why don't we'll go like five guys each.
Okay.
And we'll just go down the list, and I'll let you go first. Now, there's obviously a ton of free agents that have already been signed, but there's also several hundred that are still available. Spot Track lists Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan, Kenny Golladay, Bud Dupree, Byron Jones as the highest rated free agents available. And then the list goes down from there. But go ahead. Why don't we'll go back and forth here. I'm going to write this down.
Okay.
Raj's list and my list of what we're calling the free agent steals. Like, all the money for the most part's been gone. Now the guys who are going to get signed, there's going to be a few guys who get big money, but for the most part, you're starting to get, this is where I kind of think the Niners might be able to actually make hay. Why? Because the signing of Hargrave announces to the football world that the 49ers, again, are going to be, if not the team to beat in the NFC, they're in the very short discussion, and it's undeniable. So if you're a free agent and you can get, I don't know, $6 million from a team that's not going to the playoffs, or, $4 million from the 49ers, or whatever it's going to be, you might take a little less money in this situation to play for a team that looks like they're headed towards a Super Bowl. Maybe that's wishful thinking, but I also kind of believe that players on some level do want to win if the money's relatively equal. Go ahead, Raj. Who do you, give me a free agent that's still out there that if in our draft here, you're like, you know what, I'm taking him off the board. He's coming here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what you just said is absolutely right. And I think Hargrave said that in his press conference last week. He said, as soon as the 49ers called me, I knew I had to do it. There was other teams that offer more money, but you don't always get a team that's a winning team that has a chance to win a championship, offer you pretty good money. You take it as a free agent. So I think that maybe the rest of these guys on the list probably have that same mentality. Like, yeah, they can go chase a bag, but maybe they take a little less to come with the 49ers. Now, this guy that I'm going to mention, he may be a little bit out of the price range, unless, again, he wants to take that lower money. Yannick Ngakoue. Again, we've been talking about edge. This is my guy. I want to see him on this team. He's a great pass rusher. I think he may not have been signed yet by a team because he's
out there.
Yeah, he hasn't been signed yet because I think that his weakness is against the run, right? He's not the best run defender, but if you know he's just your pass rush like specialist, that's fine. Go pay him $6 million, $8 million to go and run after a quarterback. If you got Hargrave now, which we talked about last week, he's going to get double blocked. You got Bosa going to get double blocked. Now you have Armstead that's going to shoot through. Now you can have Nagaku off the edge. You can have Drake Jack. It's going to make them get to the quarterback a little bit easier. So I 100% would go and spend my money on Yannick Nagaku, and I'd be so happy with where they're set up for the draft. There'd be no issues in my eyes.
All right, I like that one. That's a good one. It's gonna be hard to top Yannick Ngakwe, who I loved him at Maryland, and you're right. Yeah. He's a great edge rusher. And he's done it in a number of different systems, and he gets up the field, and he's been productive. And this guy's going to get his double-digit sacks, whether and that right there, where if you got a guy like Ngakwe who's almost a lock for 10 sacks, you put him opposite Bosa. That's a great one. I'm gonna go Rob C here. I'm gonna go with Rob C's idea. Yeah. Leonard Floyd. I'm gonna go Leonard Floyd. Why? Because the one thing about Leonard Floyd that I know is that there's no draft pick compensation tied to him because he was a cap casualty. So he doesn't even impact that whole equation as far as free agency. So you don't have to give up a compensatory pick. So I'm gonna say Leonard Floyd. Take him away from the Rams. I loved him with the Bears. I loved him at Georgia. Guy's just got a crazy, crazy bend, athletic. To me, he would be an upgrade on Ebukam, Jordan Willis, and Amenahue. As much as I love those guys, if you could get this guy and then cover it in the draft, I think that's probably the way to go.
That's a solid pick. I love Floyd. I was hoping you didn't pick him on your list because I had him on mine. Definitely a guy that can rush, and he could come in, play outside line. He could play off the edge. Phenomenal player. But my next guy, I'm gonna stick with the edge theme. It's gonna be my last edge. But another veteran that could come in, rush the passer. He's got championship pedigree. It's Frank Clark, man. If you can't get Nagaku, you go get a guy like Frank Clark that knows that the 49ers are a winning team. He can come in and chase another championship. He's been to the championship. He's won 2. Unfortunately, he won one of them at the cost of our expense. But this guy, I get it. He may not be the greatest in the locker room to fans, but they said the same thing about Richard Sherman. But Frank Clark, I feel, would be an absolute dog off the edge for the 49ers. If they can't get Yannick and Frank's willing to come in for a lower amount of money, he's 30 years old. Maybe he's okay with taking a cheaper veteran deal. Go get Frank Clark. I would love it.
All right. I like that one. I like that name too. Frank Clark was awesome at Michigan. He's been a force with the Chiefs. The only thing about Frank Clark is he does run a little hot. He runs a little hot. And I don't know if, but I'll say this. I do think you need some guys who play, who kind of live and play on the edge. You know what I mean? Yeah. And Frank Clark is that kind of guy. I mean, he's a bad A, you know what I mean? And you need some guys on your defensive side of the ball who are just badass guys, That's what they lost in Jimmy Ward. Jimmy Ward, in a lot of ways, was a bad A. And you need those kinds of guys for sure. But I got a guy like that too, but I'm thinking now I got Leonard Floyd, and I'm willing to cover, let Leonard Floyd, if I'm assuming I have Leonard Floyd. So then I can replace the rest of the DNs in the draft. I'm going Marcus Peters, another guy who runs really hot. And, his agent, Doug Hendrickson's a buddy of mine. I think Peters is, kind of was marked down this year, had a little bit of a regression. I don't think he's going to get, the big bag. I think he might, have a reasonable price tag. And I just think that you got to have guys who are just straight dogs. And Peter is a dog. He will fight you. He's emotional. You got to kind of keep him reined in a little bit because he will go off. But I think he's the kind of, I think they need to make themselves a little uncomfortable to get to that next level defensively in the secondary. This guy might make the guys in the room a little uncomfortable, but man, this guy breaks on the football, and he's just a big time player. He's lost a little, but I would still go Marcus Peters.
Yeah, that's a solid pick. I liked him. He knows how to play ball, man. He can't make, I mean, he had the ACL, but he didn't really lose too much after it. He still showed that he's a quality player, probably still a starter in this league. I mean,
He's 30.
very, very good. Yeah, 30, so you could come in, a veteran type guy. I think I like it. But my pick would be we're going to stick to cornerback. I like Shaquille Griffin, kind of a comeback story, underrated type guy. I feel he's a solid player in this league. Again, he has a little bit more versatility than just cornerback. So again, sticking to the theme that the 49ers have of guys that can be kind of moved around. He can play special teams. Again, they give you depth at a position that you really want to make sure you have depth at cornerback. I like Shaquille Griffin. I think he's a good person, and that's kind of the mold the 49ers are looking like, right? You would kind of see him. He would definitely fit the mold of what it would be to be in the 49ers locker room. I think the players would really like this guy. Again, great story. I like Shaquille. I think he's had some good time in the NFL. He'd probably come in on a prove it deal, 1 year deal, and add some solid depth. So yeah, I'm going Shaquille Griffin. I like him. He's a little younger than Peters, so he gives you a little bit more upside. But yeah, Peters a little bit more aggressive. But if I can't get Peters, I'm going Shaquille Griffin.
All right. My next pick, I'm going with a guy that once again is a Wilkes guy, and I could see him coming here. Matt Ioannidis
Mm,
from the former Commander, who's now with
yeah.
the Panthers, who's a defensive tackle in some schemes. He's a defensive end in other schemes. He's 29, just super tough, super workmanlike, backup player, plays in a rotation, plays with his hair on fire, just a super tough guy, culture guy. That's the other thing too. They've lost some guys on their, they've lost some guys in that room on the defensive side. And they're changing the culture a little bit on their front. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, is Kerry Hyder coming back? They brought back McGill, but they lost Jordan Willis. They, obviously Ebukam and now Menahue as well. So those three guys, and who knows about Kinlaw. So they're changing up a lot of the look on their front. Their number of guys moving on. I think a guy like Ioannidis would just be, I don't know if you play him inside or there's times where you could play him outside in a different look, but I think I'd like to have him in a rotation. So I'll take Ioannidis.
Good pick. I'm gonna move over to the. I know we've talked a lot about defensive line and those kind of moves, but there's still I feel like a hole on the offensive line, and I think I would go and get a solid offensive lineman. Now I know this guy's played primarily left tackle, but you want some depth. I like Donovan Smith. He played on the Bucks for several years. I think it's a guy that maybe he could play right tackle, but even if not, you have a swing tackle in your rotation. I think he could start right away for the 49ers. I know they put some money on Colton McKivitz. They brought him back. Basically, they're hoping that he can be a cheaper starter than McGlinchey is. Because, I mean, again, we talked about how McGlinchey got paid a lot of money out in Denver. And they took McKivitz on a 2-year deal, basically $2 million a year, basic 2.5. So I still don't feel confident with their depth at offensive line. You have a guy like Jalen Moore, who I'm really scared if he's your swing tackle. I like Nick Zakelj. I like Poe as depth, but we haven't seen them do much yet. Again, they're young players that haven't had their opportunity yet. So I need to get some offensive line. I think Donovan Smith would be a solid player at tackle. You could put him on one side. You have Trent Williams on the other side. Then your swing tackle would be Colton McKivitz, and I'd be very ecstatic with that a little bit more than having Colton as your starting right tackle and then Jalen Moore. Obviously, they could still make a move in the draft, but this gives me a lot more confidence moving forward. Donovan Smith, I think he's a quality player at tackle.
Donovan Smith. Okay, that's a good one. I think offensive tackle is important too. I'm going to go Tom Compton. I'm going to say bring back Tom Compton.
Oh.
Tom Compton can play guard. He can play tackle. I don't think he's going to get a whole lot of money. I think we know he can block in this system. He's just a solid veteran. He's nothing great, but he gives you some, so you're a little less desperate going into the draft. He's not the kind of guy that in any way people go, oh, yes, you've got Tom Compton. You're on your way. But you know what I'm saying? It's like he's, nobody's buying the Compton jersey. But I like Tom Compton. I think he could be effective. I really do. I think he could be an effective guy that you bring in who can, play, right tackle if you need to have, I want to give McKivitz a shot. I want to have another veteran there, and then I'd like to hit that position in the draft, and then that's how I want to hit right tackle. I think Colton needs a shot to show what he's got, but then he needs to be supported with another veteran, and maybe the guy who's really going to be the guy, at right tackle. Maybe they draft their future right tackle in this draft, but maybe they sit him on the bench to start. Offensive line, it's a tough position. Like, you have to invest in the draft and the offensive line, but at the same time, you can't put a bunch of rookies out there and just and hope that everything works out. They're going to make mistakes. It's a very demanding position.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough spot. And again, I want to see what McKivitz has. They've had him on the team since 2018, but still, you worry because you don't want to sit. To me, I just don't want to gamble with the offensive line because you've had 3 quarterbacks that went through your roster last year. You ended up with Josh Johnson, and it's not the first time this has happened. So I don't know. I just feel like there's never enough. You can never have enough good linemen, just like you can never have enough good defensive linemen. So, man, I'm gonna give McKivitz the benefit of the doubt, but if you can get a guy like that, I would take him. But yeah, Tom Compton, same thing. The guy knows the system. He's not like a lavish pick, but he's a guy that could come in and be depth, like we said, and McKivitz could be your starter. Maybe have a better swing tackle, but it's interesting, where they can go. Another tackle I like, I'm gonna add him on my list too.
Yeah, who's your fifth guy?
My next guy is Isaiah Wynn, another tackle. This guy's been on the Patriots. He's a solid veteran. Another guy that could come in and be a good offensive lineman that has had, some solid time in the league. Again, I'm worried about this line. If I don't get Donovan Smith, I want Isaiah Wynn. This guy, again, he played for the Patriots. He was battling a little bit of injuries here and there, but offensive line, a lot of them go through that. I think he could be a solid, depth player, or at least compete for that starting job. Maybe push McKivitz. Maybe that's what I'm hoping for. This offseason, they get a guy that can push McKivitz, and if McKivitz elevates and he looks like a dog at camp, then all the power to him. I just want them to push him a little bit and don't hand him the job because, hey, we signed you. We don't have another right tackle. You're our starter. I want them to push him like they're going to push Trey Lance and everybody else on this roster. So Isaiah Wynn is my other guy.
That's a good one. That is a real good one. Man, for my last one, I think I'm going to go with, I'd like to see them bring back Robbie Gould. So part of me says put Robbie Gould on the list, but I've also like maybe one more veteran edge rusher. I kind of like Melvin Ingram, and I kind of like Jason Pierre-Paul. Now they're both 33, 34, in that range. Ingram played last year with Miami, Pierre-Paul with Baltimore. But both these guys are they know how to hunt quarterbacks. And at the end of the day, you got to be able to, go get the quarterback. And it's like, I think the Niners are going to have a really young secondary. I think it's going to be a very, very young secondary. So I'm fine with the young secondary, but I got to have a lot of pass rush up front. Yeah. And to me, I would like to get one of those guys. I'll say Melvin Ingram. Melvin Ingram as my fifth free agent. And I don't think you're going to have to spend big money to get him, but I do like the fact that he's got a lot of experience coming off the edge in a number of different schemes. And it seems like the Niners love their South Carolina players, right? So he's another former South Carolina guy. He'll fit right in. Exactly. Okay, so that's good little rundown. Your list is Yannick Ngakoue, Frank Clark, Shaq Griffin, Donovan Smith, Isaiah Wynn. Ooh. You're going edge rusher, corner, and offensive tackle. I'm going Leonard Floyd, Marcus Peters, Matt Ioannidis, Tom Compton, Melvin Ingram. I'm going D-end, corner, D-line, O tackle, D-end. So we're basically hitting those same areas. The 49ers, according to the reports, have, I think, $7.9 million, which right in cap space after the first wave of free agency. So that's enough to sign their draft class, but also there's other things that could potentially create additional cap room. What do you view as the number one issue right now, Raj? Here we are on the 20th of March. What do you think's their number one personnel need?
So just like we mentioned in our free agency roundup right there, I still think another edge rusher. Just like you said, you need to get an edge rusher to hit those quarterbacks so you can take pressure off your secondary and then your offensive line. To me, those are the big two. Again, I'm still not sold on Colton McKivitz. I want him to get his opportunity, but maybe it's not just Colton McKivitz, the backup depth right now. I'm not sold on any of them. I like the upswitch, the potential of a guy like Jason Poe and Nick Zakel. I'm excited about those names, but I haven't seen enough of them. And Jalen Moore, I've seen a little bit of him, and I wasn't too impressed. So offensive line to me and defensive end to me, those are the two spots that I'm really a little bit concerned. I know there's a lot of people actually I was talking to. They said kicker. I'm not. I want him to draft a kicker. So to me, if I'm the GM, I'm making sure I really scout the defensive end and offensive side of the ball on the line. So that's where I'm at.
To me, it's defensive end and maybe offensive line talent, like just depth. I mean, I don't necessarily. I think they could plug and play guys right now, but I just want some good prospects that you can coach up on your offensive line, and just maybe one real big long corner. That's why Lonnie Johnson's so intriguing, because if you do have big corners, then you're better against the run. Typically, you set the edge better against the run. You're more physical. I like the fact they brought in Oliver, and if they could complement him with Lonnie Johnson or a big corner in the draft, I think that could be, that could change their defense. I mean, you got it. Those guys actually, believe it or not, make a huge difference in how good you are against the run. The fact of the matter is Emmanuel Mosley was a terrific open field tackler. So to lose him, you're losing a lot. So, a corner who's got some size who could tackle would be great. All right, the draft is coming up. It's March the 20th. I think the draft is basically 5 weeks away. How big you get into the draft? Do you I know you've got other things going on. Some people don't touch the draft at all. Other people are into it. I'm into it, but I know not everybody is. Where are you in the draft? Like, if I say to you, is there already a player or two that you would like to see them go after in the draft at a certain position? Anybody jump out?
Oh, absolutely. I love the draft. I'm usually a big part of draft season, but these last couple weeks I just haven't as much as I usually do. But I'm like looking at the tape. I'm looking at prospects. I'm following all the close, the people that are showing interest with the 49ers. So yeah, I have draft crushes. We do the mock drafts. I love PFF's little mock draft simulator. I sit there for hours like, okay, I don't like that.
Who's got the best mock draft simulator?
Exactly.
PFF.
Yeah.
There's like a draft network. There's a bunch of them.
Yeah, I love PFFs. Draft Network's not bad, but I sit there. I can be there. I'm like, I didn't like that one. I didn't like that one. And I'm sitting there waiting for like the perfect mock draft, and then I'll post it, But yeah, definitely love the draft. I think if there's one player I want the 49ers to get, if I want to name my draft crush, I guess, it's Cody Mock.
Wait, this is March 20th. March 20th. Wait a second. Let me go into the chat. Wait 1 second. Let me wait. Don't give it just yet. Don't give it. Hold on.
Okay.
This is very special moment. Here we go.
There we go.
For the audience, 2020 Raj makes his draft crush on the Krug Show. Raj, what do you got?
Here we go. It is. Here, you ready? Drum roll. You gave me the nice intro for it. So my draft crush for the 2023 season, because everybody's been asking, is offensive tackle Cody Mock out of North Dakota State. Wow! That guy is a dog, man. Come on. That's my guy. If the 49ers could go and get him, please go get him.
Wow! Incredible!
Cody Mock, North Dakota State. You could park a small car between his teeth.
Yeah.
He's got the long hair. He's played guard. He's played center. He's played tackle. Yeah, I saw him in the All-Star game. He is there's an anger about his whole blocking that's just awesome.
Lumberjack.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's I don't even know if this guy's a good old boy. This guy's just an old boy. I mean, this guy's has to be seen. I mean, he's got the he's a long-haired ginger guy with just like a hockey grill, you know,
It's exactly it. He
He's got
looks
the
like a
hockey
hockey guy.
grill.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's from Hankinson, North Dakota.
Wow.
He went to Hankinson High School. 6'6", 303 pounds. He was All-America second team. I mean, he came back this year for his 5th year of eligibility. They gave him the extra year because of COVID-19 impacted his 2020 season. Yeah. 3-year starter in high school, played tight end, quarterback, defensive end, team captain as a junior and a senior. He was a great player in high school. Guy just loves to play. Yeah. Basketball. He's a great athlete too, Raj.
He's a dog,
Basketball,
man. Yeah.
all conference in high school, all region standout, state qualifier in track. Also played baseball. This guy did it all.
Wow. Majored
in agricultural engineering with a minor in crop. Wait a second. This is listen to this. Majored in agricultural engineering with a minor in crop and weed science.
Let's go, man. I love him even more now, knowing that. I love the guy. Oh my! Niners, sign this guy, man.
Get this guy. He's one. Wait a second. He's one of 8 children. He has 4 sisters and 3 brothers.
Oh my God! Sign this man. Go draft him. We need him.
Cody.
We need to get him. We need
number
him.
70. Yeah, no, he's nasty.
Oh God, man, that's
he's
a
nasty.
Dog.
He just that guy. Yeah, that guy he just loves to play. They highlighted him during the Senior Bowl. Yeah, that's a great one. All right, that is a phenomenal pick. All right, I'm gonna go with, and I like a bunch of guys in this draft, but I like Jamie Robinson from Florida State, the safety.
Safety, yeah.
You know, and then Jordan Elliott said he was really impressed by his interview at the combine. I really, really like him quite a bit. He just is a tone-setting safety. He's just like one of those guys that, you know, he plays to have big hits and crush people. So I like Jamie Robinson. I think he was kind of an alpha. You need some alphas in your secondary, and he's an alpha. So I like that. The other guy I really like is Dawan Johnson, the defensive lineman from Toledo, who supposedly the Niners met with. He's like a defensive end, but he could also play inside. He's about 275, 6'3", 275. But he's just ridiculous play strength, quickness. Love him as a later round guy.
Nice.
Good stuff, Raj. We are 58 minutes in. I wanted to do exactly an hour, and we're basically there. Give people an idea. What do you got cooking this week? I know you're always working. You're always doing stuff. What are you working on this week?
You know, same as always, just grinding, posting content. We going live every time. I had Mooney Ward on my show. Well, I was live on Instagram, and we're trying to figure something out. So we're working on that. But yeah, you know, just the normal stuff. We're going to be recapping things. I have a show with Wayne Breezy on Wednesdays now. It kicks off this Wednesday. We have our premiere show Wednesday. So I believe 4 p.m. Pacific will be rocking and rolling the R&B show. So
now, what channel is that? On your channel or his channel? Or
it's on our YouTube. I think we're going to link our YouTube shows and just rock it like that. So
look at you guys.
Yeah. It's going to be fun times, man. So,
Wednesdays. What time is Wednesdays with Breezy?
4 p.m. Pacific is what we're aiming for. So I'll post some updates on it. But appreciate you all the time, Larry. Good stuff today. And let's hope the Niners go and get one of our free agents on the list there, huh?
Seriously. Ngakwe Clark, Shaq Griffin, Donovan Smith, Isaiah Wynn, Faraj, Leonard Floyd, Marcus Peters, Matt Ioannidis, Tom Compton, and Melvin Ingram for yours truly. Raj, you're a scholar and a gentleman. We'll see you. Have a great rest of your Monday.
Same to you, my man.
There you go. The great Raj in the house. He is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Go follow him. He's a great follow on Twitter. Of course, his Instagram is blown up several times over, and he is blowing up on YouTube as well. All right. Thanks to our title sponsor, Pig and a Pickle. Check them out in Corte Madera and in Emeryville. They're open 5 days a week in Emeryville, Wednesday through Sunday. They're open 7 days a week in Marin County there in Corte Madera. Get the brisket chili, especially when on St. Patty's Day. I can't go corned beef, but I can go brisket, and the brisket at Pig and a Pickle is absolutely second to none. Make sure you get the brisket. Thanks to Damon and thanks to Mary for being proud sponsors of the Krug Show. And also, let's give you a little quick word from Pig and a Pickle. And special thanks to Telmetrics, TELMETRIX.co. If you get hurt and you don't want to go to the doctor, you want to rehab at home, Telmetrics.co. And thanks to the New York Style Sausage Company as well. They are phenomenal sponsors. I love New York Style Sausage. It is absolutely the best. Try it. This is one of those products, if you try it, you're just going to love it. You're going to be a fan forever. Here is a little message from New York Style. Get the chorizo, get the Italian mild, get the Italian spicy. The breakfast sausage is incredible. They have a bunch of different kinds, though. It's incredible. Try New York Style Italian sausage.
So New York Style Sausage was started over 70 years ago. We are the largest producer of fresh Italian sausage on the West Coast.
What makes our sausage in New York style is really the recipe came from back east, from New York, from Connecticut.
If you look at all of our labels, there's maximum 4 or 5 ingredients, which we're really proud of.
There's no preservatives, no MSG, fresh in, fresh out.
The pork comes in fresh, goes out fresh. There's never any freezing throughout the process. We've always used fine quality cuts. We're never gonna deter from that. It's one of the reasons why our sausage is so good. I guarantee you put our sausage up against anybody else's from a flavor standpoint, no one will beat it, hands down.
And do yourself a favor and do me a favor. Go buy a package of the New York Style Italian sausage. Guaranteed you will love it. Guaranteed.
All right, coming down the home stretch on the Krug Show, big Monday. I'll be joining Grant at 3 o'clock. So 50 minutes from now, I'll be on his channel. Check us out over there, talking about a lot of these topics and many more, many more. Eric Hernandez, Larry and Raj cooking a good show. Thanks, Eric. Thanks for being a proud member of the Krug Show. We got a couple people in here. Harold says, and Harold Downs is Dante Stills, West Virginia defensive end. He's got that dog in him. I'll watch Stills. I know they met with him. They met with Stills. Sean Prapper says, I know we just re-signed Ross Dwelly today, but I'd love to fortify our tight end room a little bit more. No question. If they could get, this is a really good draft for tight ends. I think it's one of the best tight end classes I've seen. I like a lot of these guys. Mayer's monster. Luke Musgrave's a great athlete, maybe the best athlete. Kincaid was spectacular at Utah. Very solid tight end. Darnell Washington, you got to be kidding me. Darnell Washington made a catch at the combine that was like one of the greatest catches I've ever seen. That guy's just ridiculous. 6'6", 270, lean. Darnell Washington is just like, what? What the heck? Sam Laporta from Iowa, terrific player. I like Payne Durham from Purdue, 6'5", about 260. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Dallas Goedert. Davis Allen's a great athlete from Clemson. He had great workout in Indy. Zach Kuntz is 6'8", 255 pounds from Old Dominion, and he gives a huge target. Schoonmaker from Michigan, I like him as a blocker. He's 6'6", he's 250. The Cincinnati tight end's a pretty good player, Wiley. So there's a lot of good tight ends for sure. I mean, Christian Sims from Bowling Green is a little on the short side, but man, he is impressive. Princeton Fant from Tennessee is a great athlete, kind of short, great athlete though. So there's a lot of interesting. And then I mentioned Elijah Higgins. I mean, you get Elijah Higgins in day 3 of the draft. That could be really, really intriguing. He's 235, but I mean, you're talking about a movement tight end at the next level. That could be an absolute Elijah Higgins. I got to see at the Stanford Pro Day I think it's coming up here tomorrow, the next day. I got to see exactly what the reports are, how he worked out there. But Elijah Higgins at 235 moves really well. And if you could get him to be a flexed out tight end, that's mismatch city right there. Hardworking kid, great athlete too. Mateo says, Larry, how's it been? It's been good. Things are good. I'm going to be on with Grant at 3, and then we got, let me see what else I got in store for us this week. We got a lot on the schedule this week. Here is the schedule for the week. So we're on with Grant at 3. Warriors Houston goes tonight at 5. So we're going to be on around 8:00 post game after the this is gotta have it game for Golden State. There's just no question. They have to have this one. Tomorrow we'll be on Vicious Channel. I'm also doing a live stream with Amin the Dream coming up tomorrow. Wednesday, I'm doing a stream with Niners Jess on his channel. We'll also be doing some other stuff. Thursday, Ryan Hensley stops by on my channel, and Jesse Naylor will be by. And then Friday, Vish stops by. So we got a lot of Niners still coming up later on this week. And of course, we'll be on after some of these Warrior games. Warriors better get serious here. They're going to want missing the playoffs altogether. So anyway, thanks to everybody. Thanks to our sponsors. Thanks to all of you in the chat. I always like to check to see exactly where we're at. We are at 15,578. So if you're one of the couple hundred people still left in the stream, please, if you've yet to hit like and subscribe, please hit like and subscribe. If you hit like, that just helps the algorithm have more people find our shows. If you hit subscribe, you'll be alerted. You hit that notification bell, you'll be alerted every time we go live. And then, of course, for $4.99 a month, we have channel members as well. Channel members. Look for my video coming out later today on Casey Schmidt of the Giants. I think the Giants are in a situation right now where they've got to go north with Casey Schmidt. I'm going to do a whole video on that coming up. Look for that because I worked on that, and you know what? I think there's no reason that to leave Casey Schmidt behind. If you're the Giants, start with him in the big leagues, and I do a whole breakdown on it. Should be pretty good. Look for that on the Krug Show on YouTube. All right. Val Ramos says, have a great day, everyone. We got this one from Breaking 80. He says, to boost the D-line room, who do you like? Leonard Floyd, Frank Clark, Justin Houston, Melvin Ingram, Yannick Ngakoue, Jadeveon Clowney. I like Floyd. I like to stay away from older players for the most part, like Houston's older. Clowney's got some mileage. Ngakoue, I think, is great, but he's just going to cost you. Ingram, only reason I like Ingram is because I think he's just a tremendous edge rusher and he's cheap. But yeah, Leonard Floyd. Out of that group, Leonard Floyd. If I guess the second choice would be Clark. I think Clark might run a little hot. I'm not sure if they're gonna if they'll touch Clark. I think Clark might be a little bit, they typically don't go for guys who are just really on the edge. But I think that's what it takes to be a great football player sometimes for some guys. Look at Detroit. They just got CJ Gardner-Johnson. He plays on the edge. And you're talking about a guy who only got $8 million, but really is a damn good football player. And Frank Clark is as well. Only thing is Clark had a little bit of regression last year where I think Leonard Floyd probably is going to have a couple more good years going forward. We got this one from Rob C. Cody Mauch needs to be drafted by the 49ers. Yeah. Cody Mauch, especially the North Dakota State, and you got Trey there and him there. But this guy is he's just a throwback, Now, I don't know that he's a right tackle. Might be more of a right guard. He might be more of a center. That's the one thing. If you felt like he had the arm length to play right tackle, then yeah, I would trade up in round 2 and get him because I love the tenaciousness. But if he's more of a guard, I think I would sit where I'm at in the 3rd round and hopes that he falls to you somehow because of athletic limitations. So it really comes down to he's right there in that 2nd round. I think he's right there in that 2nd round, probably top 20 of the 2nd round, and they don't pick till the end of the 3rd round. So it would take some maneuvering if you want Mr. Mauch for sure. Gregus says take all 3 3rd rounders plus to go up and get the top of the round 2 to get Mauch. Yeah, I don't know if he's going to go top of round 2, but I think he's definitely going to go by the middle of round 2 for sure. Rob C says he's just a football player. Yeah, he's a football player. He's dentally challenged, but he's a damn good player. All right, see you at 3 with Grant on his channel. See you tonight after the Warriors and the Rockets. The Warriors better get this one.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you asked for. Here for whatever you bring me, getting handled. I answer to no one, I don't need to hassle. Yeah.